Hi, I'm Esther.
And I'm Sean.
I write about AI news here at Tech Target.
And I edit Esther's stories.
We're here to talk to tech experts about everything AI, from open and closed models to AI agents and who's ahead in the generative AI race.
And even the elusive AGI.
We've got it covered, right, Sean?
Yep, we've got it covered. So, hi everyone. Welcome back to the Targeting AI podcast from Informa Tech Target Editorial. Our guest today is Jay Patel. He's SVP and GM Cisco WebEx for CX. He's focusing on customer experience there, obviously. Before this role, Jay was VP and GM for WebEx CPaaS for 3.5 years. Before that, he was CEO of Immobile, which is now part of WebEx. He was there for more than a decade as CEO.
Well, we are so excited to have you. So we would like to start with just getting to know a little bit more about WebEx AI Assistant. So what is WebEx AI Assistant? What does it do? And how does it benefit workplace users?
So the WebEx AI Assistant that we're putting into our WebEx Contact Center product essentially serves a number of the personas that exist in a contact center. So within a contact center, you typically have agents, you have supervisors, you have analysts, and you have admins. And the assistant helps each of them in their roles. The WebEx AI agent helps with things like summarizing calls. So when, for example, you've been onto a website and you've had a chatbot conversation, and you hand that call back into a call center, it can summarize that so the agent can pick that up quickly without having to read through the whole text. It helps the agent with a set of information to help them suggest responses to particular questions that the caller may be asking. It helps supervisors to monitor the performance of an agent by looking at things like their auto CSAT score. It helps the analysts in a call center analyze the topics that are being discussed on the calls. And it helps administrators create these bots and agents and train those agents, the AI agents, for the call center.
I mean, have you already deployed AI agents for CX on your platform, or is that something you're about to do?
So we have many of those features in beta currently with customers, and they will go GA in the first quarter of next year, and many more of the features. It's a rolling program of introducing new capabilities for the AI. I mean, and again, we should separate what we mean by AI agents and AI assistants. So we have the idea of the WebEx AI agent that sits in front of a contact center and basically helps. It's like an AI front door and helps with things like containing calls, concierging calls, and making sure that we route the calls through to the right human agents. And then so that's the WebEx AI agent. We also have the AI assistant, the WebEx AI assistant for the call center, which is more like a co-pilot for the personas. So the co-pilot for the agent themselves. So the AI agent, the AI front door is currently in beta. Will be launched in February, March next year. It will support a number of languages when it's launched. The AI assistant, some of it's GA today. So things like some of the topic analytics, some of the auto CSAT is live with customers today. And then we're going to roll out many more features next year, early next year.
That's very interesting. I just want to take a little bit of a step back and perhaps have you dive into when you guys kind of saw this like AI agent taking over CX, right? Because I feel like, for most people, or at least for me, AI agents really did become popular recently. And I know the technology has been around and I know there's been like talks on the ground, but how did you plan it out? To make it, I guess, as part of your platform? When did you, I guess, predict that we would need AI agents in customer service from?
I think, unfortunately, there's just a lot of noise about AI agents, and there's been a lot of change. Chatbots have been around for quite a long time, and we ourselves have been building chatbots for quite a long time, but they've been typically for very simple use cases, and they've typically been, I would say, costly to build and limited in their functionality. And this is, and we've had bots for rearranging your appointment with a doctor, or asking, where is your order? So bots that do that kind of work have been around, and lots of people have been building them. And what has changed in the last 2 years, really, and this is the big breakthrough, the big change, is that with the LLMs and the idea of generative AI, you've actually solved some of the previous problems that we had with bots. So historically, the problem with bots often was that you had to stick to a certain syntax when you messaged for the bot to understand you. Now, actually, a LLM can fill in the gaps. So you might say, historically, if you did not have the exact wording that said, I want to change my train from Liverpool to Manchester, unless you had the exact wording, or unless somebody had programmed 1,000 derivatives, you would not actually, the bot would not respond to you. Now, what's happened with LLMs is the LLMs will recognize largely anything for its intent in a way that's more fuzzy than it was before, and therefore a lot more derivatives are possible. So the understanding of what a human wants, whether it's through a text or voice, has improved dramatically in the last couple of years. And the second thing that's massively improved is obviously with generative AI, you can generate a human-like conversation, not a historic bot-like conversation. So we've been working in this area for a very long time, but generative AI really has changed the possibilities and just made that experience far, far better and much, much cheaper to introduce and provide customers. So that's really the big change that we see in the last couple of years. And that's where we see that there's a real possibilities now to have AI as an AI front door, to recognize any kind of customer intent, to have a natural language conversation, to have a voice natural language conversation, because there's also now a lot more businesses creating that layer of technology. So yeah, there's been a lot of change in the last couple of years.
I just want to say that's the clearest explanation I've heard yet about that change, that shift.
Well, the way I describe it often is it fills in the weaknesses and the gaps we had before in a way that on the input area, because it just understands it better. Like, we all have different ways of expressing ourselves. And I think that LLMs now understand what you want to say. And then it's great. And then also the other thing was the robotic sounding nature of previous bots was, again, because they each had to be programmed. And now you can have it natural language in any kind of accent you want, because the amount of investment also that has gone in to this area in the last few years is astounding. We know something like $200 billion of capex has been spent in this area. And again, one of the other ways that I look at this is historically, maybe 1,000 companies spent $10 million each and built a bot that was a $10 million bot. And it could do certain things, and some people got it right, some people got it wrong. What you've had today is you've had a few companies, only a few, that have built a central brain costing billions. And they are willing to lend that out, right, to us for maybe a couple of £1 million each. So what you've really had is you've had this massive breakthrough because of the investment cycle that's taken place, and the fact that the people who invested that money are willing to essentially monetize it through lending it out to the rest of us. So now we benefit from that much bigger investment and brain that's been created. And that's why we've had the breakthroughs we've had. And that's why I'm very excited about what's going to happen next.
That's great. I wanted to ask, and I'm not sure if you're saying kind of a little bit of this, but what would you say is the role? Does RPA play a role in this at all?
The RPA. Well, look, I think RPA does play a role. I think again the real challenge for everybody is to go from the historic binary ways of coding, A and B, and even RPA, whether you had whether it was rules based, to the fact that now some of these systems don't need to be so rules based because the engine has learnt through machine learning what it needs to do to get a task fulfilled. So I think that um, all of these, the whole chain of from from input all the way to output does not need to be as defined in detail as it was, and that's why I think there is so much possibilities. And so for example, one of the things that I think we are investing in, and we have a particular edge in, is the ability not just to have the AI agent understand a customer and talk back to a customer, but we also believe that most customers ultimately call to get something fulfilled. Now, I want to change my appointment. I want to get a refund. I want to change the color or the size of something I've ordered. Now, that involves, again, a set of inputs and outputs and integrations into backend systems. And what we're seeing is our abilities to integrate into those backend systems is also made easier because of AI, because you have co-pilots for coding, because you can basically have, our agent talk to the other agent, and that is also going to be something which means that you can create agentic AI. You can have more processes that have are process automated, whether you call it robotic or something else. That process automation is only going to increase massively because you don't need to code everything. That's the big thing that I think has changed. You don't need to set up all the rules.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like I like what you said. The rules kind of go back, and you're doing it without the guard.
Well, historically, somebody would have had to have sat there and said, if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that. And now the machine itself has worked out all those derivatives and said, here was a box, put something in, and it will just output it out. And I think that's the bit that I think is a huge change.
Can you talk a little bit about the WebEx AI contact center tools? How do they improve contact center employees and customers' experience?
Well, I think from the customer experience side, what we're hoping to achieve with the set of tools is ultimately that you wait less. So obviously reducing that time, which I think is, we'd all like to wait less because you can introduce the idea of the AI front door that when you need to find something out, there's an AI agent to handle some of those calls, so that the more complex queries can go through to human agents. So people do still often call for, how do I pay this bill? What is my account balance? I mean, there's still a lot of things that basically take up human agents that can go through to a virtual agent, and I think therefore we're going to be able to handle many more calls, therefore improve customer experience in terms of the average handling times. One of the other things is, for example, customer experience. When you call, and sometimes you do get drop calls, maybe your signal goes down, maybe there's an issue with the network. Again, when you call back, the ability to recognize you've called back, the ability to know what your previous conversation was, hand it over to an agent so you can pick up the call from when you left off. Again, these are not, it's relatively straightforward to do that kind of work going forwards. But the most important thing from customer experience is the ability to get whatever you want done. And that for me is the bit that I think is going to be the most interesting bit, which is, again, by using agentic AI, you will be able to talk to a virtual agent. The virtual agent will be able to kick off a bunch of processes that will then fulfill your request, not just create another ticket in a big ticketing system. I think from an employee standpoint in the contact center, not only will it, I think, reduce information overload because you can summarize, but also we launched a feature called Agent Wellness. So again, if you're answering 10, 15 calls an hour, there's a certain cadence, there's a certain speech pattern, there's a certain vocal way that you're going to answer these calls. The agent can pick up whether you're getting tired, whether you're being the same bubbly self you were at the start of the hour at the end, and it can then suggest to take a break when you need a break. It might realize that you had a particularly difficult call, because often customers call very frustrated. They may shout at somebody, and then if you've had a difficult call, again, our agent wellness feature will mean that the supervisor knows that this set of agents has had a set of difficult calls. Maybe they're the ones who need a break now. So there's ways of improving the employee experience inside the contact center that we think we can also use AI for.
Okay, so Jay, you're not a generative AI company or developer. You're in communications and work collaboration and CX. So what generative AI and, let's say, large language model technology does Cisco use? Do you lease like any number of models with Anthropic, OpenAI, Claude, Mistral, etc.? Or are you Google, or are you just with one vendor?
So we do use different models for different use cases, and what we I wouldn't say it's all of the above you mentioned there, but we work with Microsoft and the OpenAI LLM. We have an investment at Cisco level in Mistral, and we use some of the Mistral open source tools. And we really, and then we also have our own AI coming from the Voicea acquisition and other acquisitions that Cisco has made in the past for particular parts of transcription. So I mean, that's not an LLM, but that's a different part of the AI stack. But fundamentally, what we are looking at is we're looking at the idea of an AI engine for each use case. So and within the AI engine, you would have a particular LLM. You may have a ASR, a TTS. You'd have different components to get to the solution that you want to get to with a client. You also potentially have different cost structures, which we know that some may need higher levels of tokens and reasoning, and it's a more complex task. Others may be relatively straightforward, or you can open source the technology. So we've built our platform in a way that ultimately will allow customers to decide which AI engine they want to use, and potentially also introduce their own components, because some of the customers have their own arrangements for using a particular LLM across their business, and may want to use that LLM in the contact center, surrounded by the other components we have. And again, we will over phases allow them to actually do that as well. So the idea of bring your own LLM, or the idea of bring your own components, is something that we also recognize we will need to do, because again, I think customers are going to be very careful about wanting to use too many models in their business. The security, privacy, policy, there's a whole range of reasons why. So again, we recognize that we want to provide flexibility. We want to be their partners to improve customer experience overall, and using the technologies that suit them best. We will have our own set of models and say, hey, this is our model based on Cisco's AI principles of transparency of what we're doing, security, privacy, and to the extent they want to introduce their own, or they want us to use theirs, and it fits in with our principles, we'll be able to do that as well.
Do you think that this is kind of the way that vendors like yourself can find success? Because you're not the only one, obviously, that offers like that flexibility of having, different LLMs on your platform, and you also having your own. Um, does that bring does that help you be profitable, or do you find that it really doesn't matter? Because I wonder if everybody or every vendor is having different types of LLMs, then who's really bringing? Like, how would I know that I prefer Cisco versus someplace else?
Well, I think that firstly, we're in the really early days of this. We are in the really, really early days of this, right? So I think that being flexible, it makes sense, and I think customers and we will iterate to what works, and I think and I think that's the thing that we've still got to, all of us have got to work out what works, what's going to be acceptable to customers, the end customer, right? The end customer, will basically have, obviously you're going to tell them that they're speaking to an AI virtual agent, right? So in the virtual agent AI front door, it's one of the reasons why everybody gives them a name, right? So there's always a name for the person, the AI agent, because they want to say, hey, this is X, your AI agent. And some customers will say, yep, great, I don't mind. Some are going to go no. But again, what works in that context and what use cases are best and what technology to use underneath it, I think all of us will feel our way to what works for the end customer and what works commercially for our customers. But I think you're just going to see quite a lot of change in the next couple of years.
To hear the full audio podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, TuneIn, Podbean, and other popular podcast platforms.